I was growing up in the 1950s, I was fortunate to have 3 sisters to play with. In honor of them, I've named this quilt Four Sisters. Now, each dark square in the block is for a sister. And since this is my 25th anniversary, they are 2.5-inch squares and 2.5-inch strips. Now, this is fabric A in the block for my oldest sister, Kathy. I used green to represent 2 things she loves, Mother Earth and scuba diving. Now, I'm fabric B, the second square in the block, the second sister. I wanted blue for joy and peace. Now, Patty is fabric C, the third square, and I chose purple for her sensitivity and spirituality. The fourth square in the block, fabric D, pretty in pink for my baby sister, Judy, for her nurturing and her affections. And then fabric E is lattice, background in the cornerstones, all the tones of all of our colors. Sisterhood together. Well, here are the pictures of all of us. Kathy right here with her favorite book, Heidi. Here I am in my blue dress with the stocking. This is Patty standing at the front window for Christmas. And then baby Judy in her pink dress. Well, with 4 girls in a row, my mom and dad had to just keep on trying until they had my brother, Bruce. Well, my good friend Nancy Loftus named this quilt, and then there was Bruce. Well, she made 5 dark squares in the block, and she turned them in a fields and furrows layout similar to log cabin. Nancy also made the scrappy queen-size Four Sisters using different mediums. It just turned out so beautiful. Now, Nancy, she suggests that you use quarter strips for more variety in place of half strips. Get that scrappy look. Debbie Jenks long arm quilted it with just a beautiful overall design. Now, Nancy Letchworth made a similar one, all in very soft pastels, very feminine looking. It's almost a yellow background, soft greens. It's so pretty. Lois Brezahoff made this cute little Four Sisters. It's a tablecloth for her country kitchen. It has apple fabric in the border. So Lois pulled out the apple colors. Here she's got red and gold delicious. She's got Granny Smith green right here. And from the extra blocks, she made pot holders. Just perfect. Well, Shirley Riley turned 4 blocks into a Christmassy looking table runner and has the colors of the snow-covered forest. Then she did some easy quilting on the diagonal. It's just perfect for the center of a holiday table. Well, this is a recent picture of the Four Sisters. Oh, we just have a great time quilting together. So now it's time for us to get started. Teresa Barnes made this 9-block wall hanging for us, and she used our favorite colors. Well, fabric A, dark green, reads solid from a distance, and fabric C is just a little lighter green with a small scale print. And then B and D work together with just a touch of yellow in B, and D reads solid from a distance. Fabric E reads as a lattice through that quilt. It has both purple and green in it. Then Teresa framed it with that dark green and a large scale print in the border. And I absolutely love Peggy Stenson's quilting. She did free motion quilting, and it's from a stencil that dates back to 1840. That is an old stencil. You know, when we were growing up, we never realized that we would become quilters. Oh my gosh, we just loved our dolls. Well, Kathy collected dolls from all around the world. Oh, they were just little dolls, and she really enjoyed them. Judy was in love with Betsy Wetsy. Oh, Betsy Wetsy went everywhere with her. Now me, I just couldn't get enough of my walking doll, Cindy Sue. We even had a great time sewing little clothes for them. Such fun. Well, this is the block, and it finishes at 10 inches, and it's so easy to do. It really works in 2.5-inch increments as you go out. And so you see, if this one is 4.5 inches when you sew two together, these pieces have to be 4.5, and then it goes into 6.5 and 8.5. That is, if you have that perfect 1/4-inch seam. Well, I love to use half strips, because when you use a half strip, you know, sometimes you cut that strip and it's got that cute little elbow right in the middle of it. Well, if you cut it in half, then you don't need to worry about that elbow. It sews easier as a half strip, and it presses easier as a half strip, because all of the quilt sizes are divisible by 8. They work just great with half strips. That is, except the wall hanging, because the wall hanging has 9 pieces we have to cut. So to start out, take your 2.5-inch strips and cut them 24 inches in length. That way, you're not going to have any waste in your strip. It's just going to be extra. You can take these and put them into another quilt. Well, I'm going to start right in the very center, and it's actually a 4-patch right here. This is fabric A, fabric B, that's a 4-patch. So take your A and your background strip and just place them right sides together. And it's really smart if you just go ahead, sew one set of strips and then measure it. I'm really lucky. I've got that 1/4-inch foot on there. Just sew right down along there with your 1/4 inch, and then set your stitch length for 2.0. And I'm just going to fly right down, keep that right up along there, so that you can make sure when you open this, it's 4.5 inches. Okay, with starting out with the darkest piece on the top, go ahead and set the seam with the darkest piece, fabric A on the top. Use your gridded mat so you can keep it straight. Nothing worse than a bowed strip. And then open and just press right into it. Make that seam behind the dark. Now, before you go on, why don't you just measure this and make sure that you have a 4.5-inch width. Let me just lay that on here and check. Yep, looking good. 4.5 inches, so that I know all the measurements will work out from that point. Okay, take fabric A and background. Put it on your grid with your background across the top. I already sewed background and fabric B, and I'm just going to take this strip, place it right sides together to it. For the 4-patch, you just wiggle those seams in there, line them up really great. Now, I like to use this ruler to cut these into 2.5-inch segments. They're already right sides together. They're all ready for sewing. So if you drop this ruler on the strips, you square off the left end, and I already put little marks at every 2.5 inches. So you just drop your cutter in and go at 2.5 inches. So you can see how quickly you can just cut right across that strip. Okay, I'm just going to take this one, grab it up. I always like to have the seam on the top going away from me and the one underneath going down, so that whenever you stitch it, then the top seam pushes right into the second one. Once you get it started, use your stiletto, hold that down flat, and let's just take a look. See what it looks like. I'm going to find out if I'm going to show you or not. Whoa, it looks pretty good. Look at that. That's all that locking together. Now, so that it lays really flat in the very center, turn it over, and these stitches right here, these vertical stitches that are going up and down, you unsew them. Just take them right out, turn it over on this side, and do that same thing. Just unsew them. Oh, I got hold of a background stitch. Okay, pull them out, one more little one, then turn them wrong side up, and just open that 4-patch. Just lay it open and mush it right in the very center, so that when you look on the wrong side, you've created a 4-patch with your seams. You've got the 4-patch on the front side. And then take your patch, press it from the wrong side in a swirl. Those seams just lay right around, and then that center is perfectly flat. Well, you have your work cut out for you. You have 9 for a wall hanging, 24 for a lap robe, 32 for a twin. Oh, it's getting higher. 48 for a full and queen. And if you're doing a king-size quilt, you've got 64 blocks to make. Well, I'm going to finish my 4-patch, and I'll show you how to finish the block. This time, you need salvage to salvage 2.5-inch background strips. Don't cut them in half for assembly line sewing. Take all of your 4 patches and stack them up so that you have B in the upper left-hand corner. If you get them all right in the beginning, oh, you are going to have them right throughout. So all you do is just take this patch, flip it right sides together on that background strip, and then assembly line sew one after the other. Just line that up on there and let me pedal to the metal. You know, when we were little girls, we loved our dolls, but I will tell you, my sisters and I absolutely loved paper dolls. We would go and buy all of these movie actresses and cut them out, and then we'd design clothes for them. We would actually turn our whole bedroom into this paper doll house. You know, actually, I think my brother was probably pretty jealous of us. And even he says today, you girls have all the fun. Well, you just keep on going right down that strip, adding each piece on one after the other. Good old assembly line sewing. Okay, and then take your ruler. 6 by 12 will work great. And you want to line up as many places as you can. I'm just using the straight edge on the ruler with the top of the strip and cut in between the 2 patches. Now, if you couldn't butt them close to each other, right on top of each other, you might need to make 2 cuts, but just cut in between. Sometimes I just like to turn this one around, trim that edge off, get rid of it. Okay, take your patches, stack them up, save this for the next step, and then set the seam with the background on the top. And just open and press it towards the background. I do like to use steam. Get those seams nice and flat. And then you really do need to have that perfect 1/4 inch, particularly for the next step. Well, we've got A, we've got B, we've got that 4.5-inch strip right on there. The next piece we need is C, and it's going to go right here. If your 4-patch is a perfect 4.5 inches, you can go ahead and get all of your remaining pieces cut. This is a 4.5-inch background that I put together with my C, my 2.5-inch C right on the end. Okay, so if you just keep on going up in 2.5 increments, the next piece would be a 6.5-inch background with your fabric D. And then the last piece, this is the lattice, this is your fabric E. It should be 8.5 inches wide, that would be the print, and your 2.5-inch background strip. Well, once I get moving, I want to get these quilts done. So I like to take and stack all of these pieces one on top of the other. Make sure they're straight with each other. And then just take the ruler, take this ruler, and line it up on the edge. Let's get this straight. Make sure you have the 0 right across the bottom. And I always like to have just that little bit on the left end. So I can just put my cutter in at 0, trim off that edge, go 2.5, go to 5, 7.5, and you just keep on cutting across, cutting your 2.5-inch sections. Let's see, just take this, get rid of it. You've got perfect 2.5-inch pieces. Now, let's finish building that block. I've got the 4-patch right here, and this piece, C, is going to go on there. So this should be 6.5 inches. You do assembly line sewing with that full background block again, and that will fit 6.5 inches right there, and D at 6.5 inches, and your D piece, okay, this has got to be 8.5. Assembly line sew this strip on, and then you just finish it off with that 8.5 inch and that 2.5 inch background. It is going good. Well, whenever you sew the block together, you just always press the seam away from the background. And you'll see how they lay so nice and flat. When you sew the blocks together, they even lock. So I'm just going to take my blocks, get them all finished, and I'll show you how to sew the top together. I wanted to show you how to set the blocks together in a layout my friend Nancy Loftus calls, and then there was Bruce. It's actually similar to a log cabin layout in the Fields and Furrows pattern, and you just really follow the darkest strip over and over again, repeating 7 and then beside it an L. You just keep on alternating. Okay, we've got a 7, an L, and right beside it is the alternate, the 7. Now the next row starts out, if this is a 7, this starts out an L, and we've got 7 and an L. Now you remember that Nancy used a dark right here in this spot, so it looks like it's a continuous chain going right through. Well, I wanted to show you a picture of my brother Bruce. This is so typical 1950s. He was home with the mumps, and I just love his little plaid bathrobe. It looks so cute. Oh, did we ever spoil him? But actually, I want to lay my blocks together in the Four Sisters layout. So let me just stack these up again, and I'll show you. Now, the 9-block wall hanging has to be pressed in 2 different directions. 6 of them have to be pressed so that the last seam goes toward this strip. And then 3 of them, this is actually the middle row, 3 of them have to be pressed away from the last strip. That's so those seams lock together. Works so well. So let me show you how you lay it out. I'm going to keep the stack of 6. That will be the first vertical row that I'm going to lay out just like this, straight down, looking good. Okay, middle row is the 3 that are pressed the opposite direction, so those seams lock, and then I'm going to go back to the 6 here. Boy, I really like these fabrics, and these colors are so beautiful. Now, to make it look complete, you need to have other pieces that are from that 2.5-inch background strip, and then this is the 8.5-inch strip that is A, B, C, D, E. Okay, let's see how that's going to fit on there. That finishes that outside edge here, here, and here. Now, I like to sew vertical rows from top to bottom. So to do that, I just take the middle row, flip it to the left, like so, and then stack it. You want to stack and keep the top block on the top. And then you just assembly line sew. Let me just flip these right sides together too and kind of move them out of the way. Right sides together, right sides together, so you can do a continuous chain. Now whenever you pick up these blocks, because we press them in opposite directions, you can lock these seams right here. Go in opposite directions, lock them together, wiggle them in. I always pull on my thumb and push down with my finger underneath. Get that lined up at the top, and you just continuously sew from top down to bottom. After you get that first seam locked, then go to the opposite end, look and see if they line up, if they match. If you have to give a tug on one of them, go ahead and do that, and just keep on going. So this one is the first one. If you stack them up like that, then you'll know as you go right down through there, they're always in continuing order. Have you ever noticed how kids just adore their grandmothers? Well, my 4 sisters and my brother were no different. We would walk a mile for a fresh piece of bread from my grandma Drischel. Well, she did the bread, and then my grandma Nagel did the chicken soup. Oh, I was so pleased one day when my sister Patty said, "Elle, your chicken soup tastes just like Grandma Nagel's." Oh, that was really the height of it. Well, after you get all of the vertical rows sewn, then you have to take a long piece for the bottom row. And this is what it looks like. It's just fabric E sewn together with 2.5-inch background squares, and that goes the whole way across the bottom. Well, then I'm going to add my beautiful verdant green border and my large scale print. Let me get my top together. This is what the top looks like when the vertical rows are sewn together. Now don't clip these threads because they're just like pins holding the match points together. It makes it much easier. All I have to do now is sew the bottom row onto it. And you just basically take those 8.5-inch E-strips with the 2.5-inch background squares already attached, plus one more 2.5-inch background square. Sew them together the whole length of your bottom row. And when you press your seams away from the background so we can just set this whole quilt up for locking stitches. Now when you place this row on top to lock, all you need to do is take that seam that you just sewed and press it towards the E-strip. The whole way along, press it towards the E-strip in the first row, and then just flip it up after that's sewn. You just keep on alternating. Now here is the same seam, and you press it away from the E-strip. Just alternate the whole way up to the top of the quilt. Well, when you set up locking stitches, it is so easy to do. You know, in fact, the whole quilt's been easy to do. I think it's fun to do an easy quilt for a change because sometimes, oh gosh, I make things so complicated and it takes me forever. You know, this one, you definitely can do it in just a day. So let me line this up here, and I just look at it, roll it in with each other, hold it down flat, stitch across. Now when you get to the next seam, you may need to do a little stretching, so let me just line up here, lock it together, and just keep on going. Well, as soon as this top is together, all I have to do is add those beautiful verdant green borders, that framing border around the outside edge, and then this wide scale border is going to finish it perfect. You know, when I was young, I didn't know how to quilt, but I did know how to knit. And this is just such a fun picture. Orion looked at it and said I looked like a nerd. But here I am with the sweater I knit, my booties, beside the blonde family stereo. And right here is my Aunt Edna's washstand. When I was a kid, oh my gosh, I ruined it with that antiquing kit. Well, this washstand is still in my home, but it's been refinished by a professional. Well, you enjoy getting your top together. Have lots of fun. Welcome the third sister, Patty.
Hello.
Well, I was just showing Patty this new Four Sisters lap robe in reds and greens.
Very nice. You know, I changed the name of my four sisters. I call it the Nagel family. You know, the four squares represent the sisters, but my brother's not a square, he's a rectangle.
That's a good one. Well, the fabrics in this quilt remind us of Christmas time. Our dad always got out his movie camera and he shot footage of us. Well, we remember one very special Christmas, 1957.
The sewing machine.
Oh, you're not supposed to tell. I'm on the left and Patty's on the right. This is a gift from my mom and dad. And what is it? Oh, all of the suspense. Patty gets excited. My brother pops in to see. It's our first sewing machine. Now, this is that very same machine. Do you believe that?
Oh, very
This
cute.
is so good. Now, it's called a Singer Sew Handy. Did you remember it had a seam guide on it?
Oh my gosh, is it a 1/4 inch?
It's a perfect 1/4 inch. And this is what's really funny. It's numbered. The threading sequence is numbered. So you couldn't possibly make any mistakes, huh? Clamp it, roll it like that.
I'm going to see you really go fast like you used to. But you know, Al, this machine was for both of us. You didn't share very much. But you know, I'm the middle child. I'm used to sharing.
Well, this one was fun, but the one that started us in the love of sewing was this one. Now, my mom bought this Elna Supermatic from a traveling door-to-door salesman, and it did all of these decorative stitches from cams.
Well, you know, these Christmas stockings were one of her first projects.
I remember.
And we still have them after all these years. We hang them up every year. We've added a couple more as the family grows.
And She also made all these dresses for Easter. You know, for the little girls, there was this miniature Supermatic. And that one also cranks. See if you can get that one going. And that one also had a music box in it.
Really?
Yeah.
What does it play?
Well, it's broken now, but it did play the Blue Danube. It was really great. Well, there were hundreds of models of toy sewing machines made. What a perfect way to get young ones sewing. Now, if you have sisters or daughters or granddaughters, you may share the love of quilting with them.